Hello, everybody. This is GeorgeAnn Hughes, and this is the Byte Show. And it's a great honor and blessing to bring Peter Lavenda tonight to you. And I want to remind everybody about a real fantastic trilogy. It is Sinister Forces. It's a grimoire of American political witchcraft. It is an exquisite collection, one that you won't want to miss. And you can go to sinisterforces.info and read about it and get it, because it's a knockout trilogy, believe me. Also, The Angel and the Sorcerer. That is, you will find out more than you ever wanted to know in that book concerning the Mormon religion. Also, Ratline. Excellent, excellent book. Excellent book. And we're going to get into some of that Vatican stuff tonight with Peter. And, gosh, Peter, it's so good to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here, GeorgeAnn, anytime.
Oh, you're so generous. What do you think about a question that a listener asked? He wants to know if you think the space program and or secret space program might be ritualized a la Hoagland's thesis or Bain's most dangerous book in the world.
Wow. Well, that's a heavy question. That could probably take us for a couple of episodes, but let me try to boil it down into, a mere hour and a half.
Okay.
Well, maybe not that bad. Let's look at it from this point of view. For the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, in particular, the Bain book, the most dangerous book in the world, that I wrote a foreword to. Bain's thesis is that a lot of what happens on the political stage, on the stage of history, not just politics per se, but historical events, such as 9/11 in this case, which is what his book focused on initially. The thesis that Bain holds is that these are rituals. That what's happening is an act of ritual on a vast global scale. Yes.
In what way?
Well, what he's done is he's done what I call conspiracy Kabbalah. And what that means to me is that he's taken, similar to what I've done in Sinister Forces, he takes events that have transpired, he analyzes recurring patterns, recurring numbers, recurring words, dates on the calendar, things like that. And he's massaged all this data and come up with patterns that seem to imply that these were deliberately staged events essentially by a group of magicians, if you will, people who are manipulating events behind the scenes, and they're keeping to a kind of an occult calendar in order to perform these rituals at specific times and in specific places. He showed, for instance, connections between the attack on September 11, 2001, and he's drawn connections between that event and all sorts of other sort of Kabbalistically, mystically oriented data. But don't make the mistake that this is strictly a mystical book, because it's not. It's full of data on the attacks, a lot of the data that we've come to question in recent years, because a lot of the facts simply don't add up, either from an engineering point of view, from a scientific point of view, or even from an intelligence point of view or a military point of view. So he's taken these things and he said, well, why don't they add up? It's because we're not using the right metric to measure these events. We have to step outside of our comfort zone and look at these events through a different lens. And the lens that he's using basically is kind of an occult lens, believing that, for instance, the 9/11 attack was part of a ritual.
I think it was.
Well, it's kind of easy to come to that conclusion because there's so much that was ritualistic about it.
Yeah.
The lightning struck tower is a very famous tarot card.
Mm-hmm.
You see the tower struck by God, for instance, is one of the ways it's called Le Maison de Dieu. So in the French Marseille deck. So you have a tower struck by God. And of course the twin towers were struck by self-proclaimed religious fanatics.
Yeah.
The towers were brought down. The idea of people falling from the towers onto the ground, those horrific videos that we've seen. If you look at the original tarot card in the Marseille deck or a lot of the other decks, you will see exactly the same scene.
In the Wade deck, it is precisely that scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see people falling from the towers. So
yes.
The idea that these are things that were prefigured and that whatever caused this event to take place or whoever caused the event to take place was acting in concert with or in harmony with a deep channel or a deep current of occult energy. So this is Bain's concept. So to get back to your original question, as far as the space program is concerned, what's the connection? Well, anything as dramatic as landing a man on the moon or flying to other planets or going into orbit around the Earth, if Bain is correct, then these things should also have occult precursors. We should also be able to dissect them and find occult significance to what's going on. And of course, the moon is a very famous occult symbol. You can't get away from it. It's in every religion.
Yes.
It makes use of it. It's obvious because it's sitting up there. It's staring at us constantly.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to create religious ideas around it, mystical concepts, rituals, and all of that. But the idea then becomes, how do we separate this out? How do we separate certain items of our space program and see if there's an occult connection? Well, the most obvious one for us in the United States is the fact that the people who jump-started our space program were Nazis, were war criminals, were people who were SS officers, people who were dedicated to a weird pagan religion that had been set up by Heinrich Himmler to overthrow Christianity, Judaism, monotheism in general, and to replace it with paganism and the old pagan Nordic gods. So you have a concerted event by the head of the SS to replace every single ritual that Christian Germans had grown up with. I'm talking specifically Christian and not Jewish Germans.
Yeah. But
to replace every ritual that Christian Germans had grown up with and replace them with pagan rituals, a pagan marriage ceremony, a pagan christening ceremony, pagan holidays to replace Christmas, Easter, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a New Age movement. I mean, let's call, a spade here. It was a New Age movement. This was, it wasn't perhaps emblematic of every New Age movement or of the New Age movement in general, but it was back to the earth. It was replacing monotheism with paganism, with a kind of Nordic Wicca, if you want.
Yeah.
It was ritual on mass scale. It was nighttime rituals with burning torches and processions and invocations and ritual gestures, such as the Heil Hitler gesture. The SS wearing their skull and bones emblems, the Death's Head ring with the runes carved on it by a German mystic who designed it, who eventually wound up in an insane asylum. You have occultism and New Age concepts at the very heart of our space program.
Oh my gosh.
The people who brought it to us, were occultists, or they at least had given lip service to this occult ideology.
Yeah.
But then if you look a little bit further back, even before we brought the Nazis over, you had someone like Jack Parsons.
Oh, yeah.
Dear old Jack, the incredible exploding Jack Parsons. Here was a brilliant man, obviously. There's a crater on the moon named after him.
Wow.
He was a co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Lab.
Yes.
This was no lightweight.
JPL, Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons. Yep.
Lab. Yeah.
So here is the guy who did all that. Here was the guy who started his first space experiment, of which we have photographs of him out in the desert on Halloween, on October 31st. And if you look at some of the other space shots that we've done, in the beginning, they seemed to kind of coalesce around pagan holidays.
Yeah.
And I bring that out in Sinister Forces. So you have, there's a pagan occult background that started with Jack Parsons back in the 40s, when he was busy getting involved. And Parsons was a member of, one of Aleister Crowley's organizations. He was a true believer in the New Age as represented by Aleister Crowley's new religion of Thelema.
Wasn't he involved with, Ron Hubbard?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to go there. I didn't know if you wanted to go there or not.
Yeah, let's do.
I hope you're in a bunker somewhere.
Yeah.
Once you bring this stuff up, all kinds of things happen. But it's true. There's no way for Scientology to avoid it anymore, especially not with the Internet and the proliferation of information that's available now. But Jack Parsons ran a lodge of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, which was Aleister Crowley's sort of flagship operation in the United States. And he was at one point the head of that lodge out of Pasadena, suburb of Los Angeles, California. And he had kind of conducted a salon for occultists on the one hand and for science fiction and fantasy authors on the other. And L. Ron Hubbard fancied himself to be a science fiction author, which anyone who's read Dianetics can understand.
Yes.
So Hubbard was a naval officer at the time. He had been hospitalized with ulcers. It looked like he was sort of gold bricking to get out of the service. The Scientologists make a big deal out of his military service, but most of it's wrong. If you look at the declassified Defense Department documents, you'll see what I mean. The FBI investigated him for a while as well during the war because Hubbard was complaining that his landlord was a Nazi spy or something. So Hubbard had all sorts of wild fantasies, and he naturally glommed on to Jack Parsons, who's running this occult lodge, in California, with a big occult library, rooms devoted to ritual magic and all of this. So Hubbard and Parsons became close friends, and they conducted religious ceremonies, magical ceremonies, occult ceremonies out in the desert, in the Mojave, and were trying to raise spirits and invoke gods and demons and everything else, the whole panoply of occultism and ceremonial magic that gave rise to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as well.
Yes.
Both groups, both Jack Parsons and Hubbard on the one hand, and Joseph Smith on the other, were using essentially the same identical rituals.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, they were. Joseph Smith rituals came from the grimoires of Western Europe, mostly probably from Francis Barrett's book, The Magus, which was first published in 1801. And it was Francis Barrett's book, The Magus, that really was reprinted endlessly in the late 19th, early 20th century. And a lot of those rituals are mimicked in the Golden Dawn rituals and in the rituals of ceremonial magicians all over the West, from Western Europe to North America and South America. So these are the same rituals. You draw circles on the ground. You inscribe sacred names around the circle to protect you. You recite conjurations. They have to happen at certain specific dates and times that are sacred to the various planetary forces. These are the same rituals. This is the same structure used by both Joseph Smith and, as it turns out, L. Ron Hubbard.
Wow.
So Scientology and Mormonism have the same occult roots.
Wow.
They're both religions born in America. They're American-born, faiths, and they both began with occultism and with ceremonial magic. So this is a thesis that I've been talking about for years, and no one knows how to react to it. But anyway, there you have it. So there was Parsons and Hubbard. Parsons was still heavily involved in rocket science. He made tremendous contributions during the war to find out how you could make a better solid fuel rocket material so you could transfer missiles on board ships at sea so the fuel would not degrade over time. He made tremendous contributions that way. He started to work for Hughes Aircraft for a while. He lost his security clearance, probably because of his involvement with the occult orders. He at one point was trying to work for Israel when Israel was first created to help jumpstart their technology and rocket programs at a time when the SS was helping the Arabs develop their military rocket programs. So Parsons was involved in all of this stuff, and he was a central figure at the very beginnings of the U.S. space program. And then as he's being phased out, the Nazis are being phased in. So you have the famous Walter Dornberger and Werner von Braun, but not just them, hundreds of Nazi scientists were brought to the United States for this reason.
Yes.
And many of them were true believers. These were SS people quite often. These were people who believed in the Nazi Party, who believed in replacing a Judeo-Christianity with Nordic paganism. These were people with occult ideas about race and religion and all of that. So, yes, I mean, to answer the question succinctly, I suppose I can say yes, there's a definite connection between the secret space program and the type of ritual magic ideas that are brought up in Bane, for instance, in the most dangerous book in the world. So you're going to find a lot of crossover there between these ideas. How can you not think about traveling to the stars and not remember the memories we all have in every race of our religious beliefs about ascending to the heavens?
Yes.
I mean, we all have this. It's sort of hardwired into our circuits. It doesn't matter if you are a white European or an Asian or an African. We all have that. We all have these ideas. The Dogon of Africa, with very detailed understanding of the Sirius star system, for instance. And you have Asians, with their pace of the U, which is a way of traveling on the Big Dipper to reach the pole star mystically. And you have the Hebrew, the Jewish Merkava mysticism and the Hechalot mysticism, which is traveling up the 7 palaces, the 7 chariots to reach the throne of God at the end in space. Again, always in space, always the planets, always the stars. The cults of Mithra, very much focused on the stars. The Egyptian religion, very much focused on the stars. I mean, we've had this, it's in our genes, it's who we are. We look at the heavens and we have a religious feeling, We have feelings of the sacred, of the spiritual. And then we build machines to go there. We're building our own chariots. We are enacting the ancient myths in real time, in reality.
And a lot of us feel like we don't belong here.
Well, yeah, and more and more of us, as time goes by, feel that. I mean, this is a problem. And, we should have a reverence for our planet. We should have a reverence for Earth and for all that it's meant to us and all that it's given to us. We should have a kind of sacred feeling about it. And I can understand, neo-paganism from that point of view, and Wicca from that point of view. There is a sacredness about the Earth. And if you leave the cities for any length of time, when you go out to the wilderness, you can sense it there, as I have, and I think a lot of people have. But by the same token, when you're out there, and you're out in the wilderness, and night falls, and you look up, and you see that enormous expanse of stars, and you see meteor showers, or you see a comet, or asteroid, or a meteor, you see the slow-moving planets. You see Mars as the red planet, for instance, or you see Venus rising at dawn or setting at sunset. You see the interconnectedness between the planet that we're living on and the rest of the cosmos.
Yeah.
So it seems natural for us to want to leave the planet and to travel to the other stars. I think it's a natural human desire, which probably, I can't say for sure because I don't have an insect mind or an animal mind, but I think it probably does set us apart from the rest of the creatures on the planet, that we do want to leave the planet and go to other stars, that we do feel that maybe our origins lie there, that the planet seems like such a gift to us because it is a gift. It's something that we somehow inherited that did not initially belong to us, which is maybe why we're trashing it so badly and so often. The least among us anyway who feel that the planet should be trashed. It could be because it was a gift that was not ours from the beginning. There may be this idea, this understanding that we've come to it lately and that we're going to have to leave it soon.
Well, they wouldn't make it so you or I could leave. They would do the elite first, wouldn't they?
Well, when we're talking about the machineries of space travel, absolutely. The elite are going to be leaving, At least that's the way it looks now. But let's think of something else. Let's think of a different approach to this. Okay. I've always said that if, the secret space program is secret because the elite are getting ready to go.
Yeah.
They're investing money, time, and effort into finding out the best ways to get off planet and to do that before the rest of us are even aware of it. I would not put it past the wealthy, the powerful to do this because, as I've said before, why wouldn't they? If they did feel they had the ability to do that, of course they're going to try to do it. They've created such a mess down here.
Yeah.
They don't want to stick around and see what the outcome is. They're going to want to leave. And I think that it is possible to think in those terms, that they're willing to leave, they're willing to find a way out. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetimes necessarily, but I think the technology is well on its way. But let's look at it from a different point of view. I've been doing a lot of research into technology lately. I've been looking at the discoveries people have been making, independent individual people, countries, organizations, corporations around the world. And what I'm seeing is a miniaturization of a lot of technology, which is putting it within the hands of people who ordinarily would not have been able to afford it or had the technology or the know-how themselves. Let's just take the example of the drone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the drone to us seems like a science fiction thing, and it really does, and it seems that way to the people we're bombing, too. Here's a thing very high up in the sky that can look at your every movement, that knows where you are day and night with infrared technology.
And we're making enemies all over the place.
Oh, yeah, with reckless abandon.
Yeah.
So we're doing this on a regular basis, and it looks really weird. It looks very science fiction. It's like something out of Philip K. Dick, or Ray Bradbury, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
God rest both their souls. But it's suddenly becoming cheaper and more accessible to the point where, as we know, police departments in the United States are using it, considering using some form of that technology. China recently has even openly discussed whether they should have used a drone to capture or to kill a drug lord in Myanmar that had killed 13 of their sailors recently.
Oh.
So we don't know if the Chinese actually have a drone. What we do know is that they've copied the Raptor and Predator drones, the ones that I saw a couple of years ago, that they are actually copying that technology and using it in China. So Russia is developing drones. Iran claims they're developing drones and stealth technology. Suddenly this technology is coming within the reach of people around the world. Yeah. That's not space technology yet. That's not a star drive, right? That's not allowing us to pick up and leave the planet yet. But this gives you an idea as to what's possible in our lifetime, where it may be possible one day for, if not us, then our children or grandchildren to build their own drones.
Oh, boy.
With such capabilities that we can only dream of it right now. I mean, I saw recently an astonishing video presentation by a Brazilian scientist who showed that 10 years ago, in 2003, scientists in Brazil were able to take a primate, a monkey, and train the monkey to control a robotic arm with only his brain. Okay, so they hooked the brain of the monkey up to electrodes. And every time the monkey did something correct, he was rewarded with some orange juice. So this monkey is staring at a screen, at a computer monitor, and there's a big white dot in the middle of this computer monitor. And the monkey has to move this robotic arm so that it hits the white dot, which keeps moving on the screen.
Yeah.
Every time he gets a hit, he gets some orange juice. Well, the monkey became so proficient, he no longer had to move the robot arm himself with his own hand, which he started doing that way. They eventually got a sort of wireless connection to the robot arm. And the monkey just sat there, stared at the screen, and kept hitting the target by, with his mind, moving the robot arm.
Wow.
And he became so proficient at that they then set up an experiment whereby the monkey in Brazil was controlling the movements of a robot in Japan.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
So, and this was a few years ago. I mean, the experimentation started in 2003, the first successful use of the primate brain to control an object to which he was not connected.
Yeah.
Without using his arms or hands, was able to move this robot arm in 2003. By 2009, 2011, the monkey in Brazil is controlling a life-size robot on the other side of the world.
Wow.
Using telemetry, using, electronic pulses. He would see the robot moving on a TV screen and adjust his mind accordingly to make the robot do something else.
Oh.
So he had this continuous feedback loop. And every time he did something correct, of course, he was rewarded. So the idea that you can reward a monkey and that he can control a robot on the other side means that basically you can control a monkey to control a drone.
Wow. Oh, oh my gosh.
What does this imply? The scientists who are doing this for very beneficent, beneficial reasons. They want to create an exoskeleton for quadriplegics and paraplegics. They want to be able to have somebody who's not able to walk actually to walk. They want to use technology.
Peter, excuse me for interrupting, but they now have a glove that someone who has severe nerve damage or has no hand can put it on, and they get the sensation, the feeling of things that they touch.
Yes. Well, this is happening with the monkey.
Oh.
The monkey, one of the intermediary experiments, showed that they created a monkey avatar on the computer.
Yeah.
So the monkey would control the avatar. And then the avatar's hand, the animated monkey hand, would pass over 3 discs on the computer screen. Of the 3 discs, only one was the quote-unquote correct disc, the right disc. And that disc would emit electronic sensation through the computer to the monkey's hand, very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the monkey's brain would register that his hand had touched the right disc, except that it wasn't his hand, it was the avatar's hand.
Wow.
It's an animated monkey hand on a screen that passed over the right disc. The sensations were transmitted to the monkey, and the monkey realized that was the right disc. So once he started that, then he started to reduplicate the experiment. He kept getting his orange juice, and he kept hitting the right disc, and he would get rewarded. And he's moving the hand of an avatar. He's not moving his own hand.
That is stunning. I mean, my gosh.
And this maybe looks like it's a little bit far afield from your original question, but it actually comes back to the original question. We are creating our own avatars. An avatar is basically a religious symbol. It's a religious term.
Yeah.
It comes from Sanskrit. And an avatar is the way it's used in Indian religion. It's a higher form. It's an ultimate form. It's an ultimate incarnation of a god. So we are actually contributing to creating external forces, things outside of ourselves, outside of our physical body, that we're controlling with our mind, which seems either like science fiction or mysticism and magic, depending upon your predilection, on your own personality, how you want to look at it. But this is, using the power of the mind to move objects on the other side of the world. That we call that psychokinesis.
Yes.
Although we're using wires and electrodes today, who's to say that we're going to we're going to make that a lot easier in the future? It may be just a helmet that fits on your head later, or it may be something even less than that, where we're able to go around and move things at will using only our intention. We're doing that with heads-up technology. Pilots in aircraft are using similar things right now, using the motions of their eyes to fire missiles. That sort of technology already exists. So we know that we're heading in that direction. This is real cybernetics taken to really an ultimate demonstration. So is this magic or is this science? Or I think it was Isaac Asimov who said that you can't really differentiate science from magic, in the eyes of the beholder. Like what we call magic is just a science that hasn't been invented yet, or it's an ultimate form of science. Mm-hmm. So we're heading in that direction, I think. And the technology that I've been researching lately, just for my own information, is stunning. I mean, people are not generally aware of the progress that's been made because this stuff is not, doesn't appear in USA Today,
Yeah.
This is stuff you have to kind of dig for, but, the medical profession is aware, and the scientific and especially the military profession is aware. All this stuff is going on. It's fascinating stuff. And, is there a religious component or a spiritual component to it? You have to think there is, because once you start digging in the brain, you ask yourself, is the brain the seat of consciousness? Is the brain the seat of our soul? This is one of the age-old questions. Where does the soul come from? If we start sticking electrodes in the brain, what is the implication for our soul? The CIA, back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, was using techniques that would be familiar to a Siberian shaman. They were using that to brainwash people, or to discover new methods of mind control, to break down the human personality, to find the seat of the will, to find the seat of memory. These were all occult processes back in the Renaissance times, in the Middle Ages before that. These were all things that obsessed magicians and sorcerers and alchemists. And the CIA was doing it recklessly, like a bull in a china shop back in those days. And now we're doing similar stuff with cybernetics and neuroscience. So we are treading on religion, and especially occultism, extreme forms of religion, I might say. We are in that area. We're mucking about in the black box of human consciousness.
Wow. Well, it is a black box, that's for sure.
Yep.
And, the fundamentalist Christians, as well as fundamentalist anything, look at this kind of thing that you're talking about and scream, "Oh, it's of the devil," My gosh. How are people going to react to all these things? And also recently, they've come out with a bionic eye.
Yep. I was going to bring that up. They've developed a cornea transplant, which is going to enable blind people to see for the first. And that technology has been growing for the last 10 years at least, of which I'm aware, that they were able to start to bring sight back. First, those who lost their sight, who were not congenitally blind. But now they're talking about giving sight, not restoring it, but giving it to people who were born blind. There's positive things to all of this, of course.
Yes.
We can't say there isn't, but this is magic. This is the ethical problem that magic is probably ideally placed to educate us about it. Because remember the old Disney Fantasia movie and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. The sorcerer has to know what he's doing, or she's doing. There has to be this idea that they've gone through all the necessary spiritual stages as well as the technological information and the technological instruction. They've also gone through spiritual preparation. You can't have one without the other. But the apprentice, the sorcerer's apprentice, then, looks through the books of magic and without the preparation starts ordering the broom, to clean the floor, to sweep the floor, until suddenly he's surrounded by all of these brooms and they're all dancing around, they're out of control. This is the paradigm that we're talking about. We are at the point where we can't turn back the clock. We can't say, okay, we're going to stop all this. Because, you can personally decide not to do it, but the person next to you is going to continue to do it because it's there. And the information is there, and the science and technology is there. So people will continue to develop these technologies. Well, the kind of conversation we have to have is we have to sit down at some point and decide, okay, how far can we go? To what uses will this be put? What are the safeguards? What's the security that's built in? Quality of life issues as well. All of these things have to be discussed. The ethics of this. I mean, the storm of controversy over stem cell research, is one idea where it's become a religious debate, not a scientific.
That's right. Years and years ago, back in the mid-'90s, I think it was, I was invited to someone's house just across the border from Mexico on the U.S. side. And we were talking about sort of the same things that we're talking about now. And he said, well, come and look at this. And he opened up his refrigerator and said, you know what that is? And I said, no. He said, I'm growing a kidney. Yeah, from stem cells. He was growing a kidney.
In his refrigerator.
Yes.
I'd assume he was going to implant it himself and not, like, eat it for lunch, right?
I don't know. I don't know if somebody needed a kidney or whatever, but I was just astonished.
Well, you know, should we not do this? I mean, people on the religious right or the extreme fundamentalists will say, you can't do this. You can't do genetic research. You can't do stem cell research. You can't do half the things that science is going to do. And I think they have to stop saying that because it's not going to stop anything. What they have to really do is find out, you know, what ethical problems exist and address them as ethical problems, not as spiritual problems, not based on an ideology, because that's going to go off the rails.
Can we separate the two?
Well, you know, that is a difficult question to answer. I mean, there are so many cultural differences and religious differences where ethics are concerned, but I think there are certain things that we can all agree upon, for the most part, and that is that, you know, killing someone is wrong. I think in most cultures, it's a taboo, right? Otherwise, societies could not exist if it was okay. The problem is we always make exceptions.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Every culture makes an exception to that rule. So in the Bible it says, thou shalt not commit murder. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really say thou shalt not kill. You know, the translation is thou shalt not commit murder, which is a legalistic term.
Yes.
Because if you keep reading the laws, you can kill a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
You can stone an adulterer, you know, to death. God gave the orders to destroy entire cities. So obviously killing is okay. It's murder, unsanctioned killing, that's wrong. We have to come to terms with that, you know, because we kind of grew up thinking, well, killing is wrong. But the Bible never says that. So for Judeo-Christians, that's going to be a tough one to get our heads around because we go to war without thinking.
Yeah, we do.
That doesn't seem to be bad. We feel we can defend ourselves if we're being attacked, even though Jesus said turn the other cheek.
He also said sell your cloak and buy a sword.
Right, exactly. And I have come not to bring peace, but a sword.
Yes.
So, you know, there's a lot of death and destruction to go around and a lot of, you know, rationalization to support it. And as long as we're not having that conversation, we can't really address the rest of this stuff. How can you address stem cell research? How can you address abortion? How can you address any of this thing if you say it's okay to kill a human being in their 57th trimester, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, at what point, you know, do we draw the line? So at what point is it killing? At what point is it murder? We haven't come to terms with that. So if you're supporting war, if you're supporting invading a foreign country, if you're supporting, you know, drone attacks on innocent civilians or dropping the atomic bomb or whatever, then don't come to me and talk to me about stem cell research or abortion. You're a hypocrite.
Well,
okay, so,
you know, those people over there don't look like us, and besides that, they're brown people, and we can bomb brown people. It is nauseating.
Yeah.
And it is murder.
Sure it is.
There is no due process.
No, and let's face it, is due process going to be enough? I mean, due process is only a way to make us feel, you know, that we did the right thing.
Yeah.
When we put somebody to death, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't answer the central question, is it ever okay?
Yeah, right.
Is it ever okay? Due process, you know, schmoo process, is it ever okay to kill someone? You know, we could create all the laws we want to make it okay. And we have in this country, right? And it's on a state-by-state basis, the death penalty, for instance, right?
Yes.
Goes in and out of favor state by state by state. So the states seem to have control over that issue. So you ask yourself, is the death penalty ethical? Is it moral? And there will be fundamentalists of religious people for every religion who are going to say, yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
You know, under these circumstances, ... Buddhists, you know, we look at Buddhists as being the most nonviolent people, and yet they had no problem setting themselves on fire to commit suicide to protest the Vietnam War, or to protest just recently. It happened in Tibet. Some teenagers a couple of days ago burned themselves in protest against the Chinese presence in Tibet.
Oh, my God.
So we have this, and we have, of course, the Buddhists with the Rohingya in Burma, and that's not a whole story.
Yeah.
So you know, every religion seems to think at some point it's okay to kill somebody. So we haven't answered that central question, and until we do, that's one of those cans we kick down the road, as they say, and we don't really confront that central issue. Is it okay? Because, well, go on.
Peter, killing someone, there's a lot of ways to kill a person. Solitary confinement is one of them.
Yeah.
Person goes into solitary for a few months or a few years, as the case may be. They're not the same person when they come out. They are so broken. They cannot function.
No, it's true.
And that you when you do that, you just killed the person's soul.
Right. I agree 100%. I mean, solitary confinement is the penal system's version of sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
And sensory deprivation has shown to cause all sorts of mental and emotional problems in willing subjects.
Yes.
I mean, they used to use sensory deprivation tanks and techniques to train astronauts for space flight.
Oh.
And I remember back in the early 60s, I shouldn't probably have said that. I remember back in the early 90s. Well, okay. The early 60s, let's face it. And I was a kid in school, in grade school, and we were shown movies, educational films. And one of the educational films that we were showing was of how, astronauts in training and pilots who flew high altitude spacecraft would, become trained, and they would go into these sensory deprivation chambers. And they would have a panic button. When things got to be too bad, they would hit the panic button.
Yeah.
And they would start to hallucinate all sorts of things. They would feel really paranoid, very frightened, very scared. They would hit the panic button. They would think they had been in sensory depth for, hours or days, and it turns out they were in for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? It is a very scary thing. Solitary confinement is as close as you're going to get to sensory deprivation. And, if you're not trained for that, if you don't have any psychological or emotional resources to fall back on, it will drive you insane. Mm-hmm. It will. And, CIA did that. They practiced that kind of stuff. Dr. Ewan Cameron up in Montreal was using techniques like that on unwitting and unwilling psychiatric patients, driving them totally insane, for which he was sued. He died before anything could happen, so they sued the CIA instead, the survivors. All of this, shows you that this is inhuman treatment. And at the same time, shamans, mystics, people who are spiritual pioneers will willingly undergo this kind of experiment. But they've been trained. They have inner resources. They have ways to deal with the fallout that happens. They can deal with that through meditation and through other types of mental and emotional conditioning. So it's a real tool, sensory deprivation. It's something that can be used proactively to increase a person's psychological abilities and spiritual capacity. But you can't take a violent offender and throw them in sensory deprivation and expect, a nice, decent human being to come out the other side. That ain't going to happen. That's just not going to happen. That's impossible. You're creating another monster.
Yes, certainly are. Oh, my gosh. What about what's happening in the Vatican?
Wow. Well, this is going to be the test, This is going to be the test for everybody who is believing in the prophecies of Malachi, right?
Yeah.
Who said that this next pope is supposed to be our last pope.
Well, if you know the prophecy ahead of time, there's no problem in fulfilling it.
Right. Right, exactly. But will the next pope take the name Peter II, right? Mm-hmm. Will the next pope fulfill the prophecy deliberately? Because that would be a signal that the church is getting ready to wrap it up. And why would they? There's over 1 billion plus Catholics in the world.
Yeah.
Why would the church self-destruct? Why would they pull the plug on themselves? There are problems, obviously. I think that Benedict has more than his share. He created a lot of controversies.
Yes.
A lot of controversies. I mean, And plus he was involved with the whole altar boy scandal, or, the whole pedophilia scandal, in ways that we found out. Plus, of course, his butler leaked all sorts of documents, that famous case that just ended recently.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of stuff, and it's possible that he wants to get out of the crosshairs right now, because there's probably more revelations that are coming out that are due. I think that the Vatican or the Italian news media has become voracious where this stuff is concerned. They've picked up some teeth along the way, and they're really going after some of these scandals and some of these stories. So I think that once the Italian press, the Italian media really turn on the church, or the church would look at it that way, that they're asking for trouble. I mean, the Vatican's asking for trouble. There's going to be some more issues coming out, I think, the new Pope is going to have to wrestle with. So if I was a cardinal in the Vatican, I sound like Rand Paul saying if I was president of the United States. Well, anyway, if I was a cardinal in the Vatican, I would try to find the most popular kind of pope that I possibly could, and I would suck up to basically the developing nations, because that's where the strength of the Catholic Church is, or where it should be. It's in Latin America, Africa, Asia. I would pick someone from that part of the world and try to stay relevant and try to boost my ratings and do well in the polls, because another old white European guy may not be the answer to this problem.
Yeah.
So I think the church has more scandals coming. I think Benedict knows it. I think his health is bad, and I think that he knows he won't be able to withstand what's coming down the pike, and he needs a younger, stronger guy in that position to take the heat.
Like what kind of scandals?
Oh, there's going to be a lot more where the pedophilia stuff is concerned. Believe me, there's a lot more waiting. I think we all know people, if we know Catholics or if we are Catholics, we know people who've been abused. We know that's only the tip of the iceberg that's come out in the first place. We know that those scandals go a lot deeper. We know there's been organized trafficking of children. We know that's definitely true. The organized trafficking of children, that's going to come out in a bigger way. Right now it looks like just a handful of really bad priests. But once it's revealed there was trafficking, that there was an organization, there was a kind of a network of this going on, I think that's going to rock the church like never before. We've already seen bits and pieces of it coming out in Belgium, in Ireland, here and there. There's been hints, that there's something a lot deeper, a lot darker that's been going on. There's, of course, the whole satanic aspect to it, which everybody back in the 80s poo-pooed as being just this hysterical reaction to satanic abuse, hysteria. And a lot of it was hysteria. But I think now we're starting to look at it more reasonably, more calmly, and a lot of research has come out, recently. My good friend Nick Bryant has documented it considerably. There's a lot more that's going to be coming out down the pike, of which I'm aware. So there's going to be more revelations concerning this trafficking in children and trafficking in young adults for purposes of prostitution. This is going to come out, and the involvement of the church is there. It was already there in Nick Bryant's work, Boys Town, as a site where some of this was going on. That wasn't just a priest abusing children. That is. That was part of a network. Children. So when that starts to come out, that hasn't really been focused on very much. The church has been content to let the focus be on individual bad apples.
Yeah.
And the church's complicity in moving them around, and trying to hide them from parish to parish. But now we're going to start looking at networks of priests working with non-priests, working with the laity, in terms of trafficking of children. This, I think, is going to be the next big story of this decade and the next big story to start rocking the church.
Wow. I know that there was an orphanage in Portugal that it took 10 or 15 years for it to get to the court because everybody poo-pooed it, and it was about taking black children from Africa, putting them in this orphanage, and the next paragraph of the story was that high-level politicians, radio people, television people, newspaper people were involved in extreme pedophilia with these children.
Like I say, tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very good tip. I mean, that's a very good, indication of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Back in the 1950s, there were the Grey Nuns of Montreal. This was an order of nuns. I mean, we were taught to respect nuns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what could be more holy than a nun? But these nuns ran orphanages, the same as you're talking about.
Yeah.
But they had a different spin on this. They got more money from the state per child if the child was mentally retarded, to use the old-fashioned expression. So if they found that the child had some sort of mental disability, the church would get more money. So basically the Grey Nuns considered all their children to be mentally retarded.
Oh.
They have mental disabilities, they have handicaps, although they weren't at all.
Oh, my God.
So they subjected these children to horrible deprivation, what we can only call torture today. In order to keep them chained up, in order to keep them suffering,
yeah.
so that when the investigators came by, they would see these children in terrible state, and pretty much justified the nuns' claim that these are mentally handicapped children.
Oh.
And they would get the extra money for that. So that's as far as we know that story, because these children have grown up since then. They've carried this mentally handicapped label with them their entire lives,
mm-hmm.
only to find out they were never mentally handicapped. They are today. So they brought suit against the Grey Nuns of Montreal. They brought suit against the Catholic Church at the same time that survivors of Ewan Cameron's CIA experiments in Montreal brought suit against the CIA. So here you have the CIA and the Church essentially using children and young people and unwitting adults as guinea pigs, as fodder for experimentation.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on for a very long time.
Well, look at what the church did to children in Canada. Oh.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Horrible things. The sexual trafficking is really bad. There's probably nothing much worse than that. But when you take a bunch of children and you proclaim them to be all mentally handicapped and then chain them to beds and treat them in these Middle Ages kind of ways that you would treat mentally handicapped individuals, I mean, basically torturing them. Anybody who saw the movie Amadeus, in the first couple of scenes where, we have a famous actor, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, sitting there in the mental institution, with all of these people who are sort of dragging around, screaming in chains. And, I mean, this is what they were doing to kids in Montreal, in Roman Catholic orphanages.
Oh, my God.
So, and just for money. Just to get an extra couple of dollars per kid,
Oh.
This is why people don't trust the church anymore. How can they? They have to really close their eyes to the evidence in front of you. Jesus said, if I want to quote the New Testament, he said, a good tree cannot bear bad fruit.
Yeah.
And if a tree bears bad fruit, cut it down. Well, what do you call this?
Oh. Good Lord.
I'm starting to sound like a fundamentalist.
No. Well, we've got to look at the moral issues and the ethical issues and straighten up, for God's sakes. Gosh. Oh.
Well, the more that science becomes developed, to get back to the original point, the more we start being able to do all these things. We have not caught up spiritually or ethically with the science of the 1950s.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're 60, 70 years later, going on to 70 years after some of this stuff. And we have accelerated our growth astronomically since then, technologically.
Yeah, and a lot of that technology is not even known to the public yet.
That's correct.
Oh.
And a lot of it is being used in a weaponized form.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, look at, for instance, a man just died recently, Ingo Swann.
Yes.
Ingo Swann was one of the pioneers of remote viewing.
Yeah.
I mentioned him in Sinister Forces because of a weird set of coincidences that happened to me when I was researching the book, and I came across some of Ingo Swann's work in a secondhand bookstall in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's a whole other story. But anyway, here I am, reading Ingo Swann, just when I needed to read Ingo Swann, actually. So Ingo Swann was an artist. He was a painter. He was a very interesting individual. who was one of the pioneers, as I said, of remote viewing. And remote viewing should be used for positive things, right? Remote viewing could conceivably be used, in a positive way to do all sorts of good things. But we weaponized it right from the beginning.
Yes.
It was a military program. We were using a CIA program. I mean, the Stanford Research Institute, that was financing and funding a lot of this work, was getting its money from the government, from the U.S. government. So these were government programs to find how you could use remote viewing in a military context, because the military has all the money. So the Defense Department could spend millions and millions of dollars on this if it worked. So you had the military involved, you had CIA involved. Everybody wanted to see how you could use remote viewing, and Ingo Swann was one of the pioneers of this, and he just passed away recently.
Mm-hmm.
So here was somebody who, knew what he was talking about, and also had the UFO experiences and all the rest of it. So to get back to your secret space program, Ingo Swann was kind of in the middle of that himself, with the UFO contactee stuff on one side and the military, industrial complex on the other, and remote viewing running as a thread through all of this. Ingo Swann was convinced that, the aliens were living among us. And he claimed that he knew, that he could see them, that he, communicated with them. But he also was the one who said that you can, with your mind, by yourself, in a room, like the monkey with the orange juice, and sit there and see something on the other side of the world, and not only see it, but maybe influence it, affect it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's part of, quantum non-locality and all the rest of it. The idea that, you can defeat, the speed of light barrier that we have in communications, that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. According to quantum mechanics, you can. Everything happens simultaneously. So this is all there. This is all part of what is happening in science, the convergence of all of these ideas, the convergence of these technologies. And as we converge the technologies with consciousness, we're in the process of creating, a Frankenstein's monster, quite possibly, because our ethics and our spirituality has not caught up with the program.
Boy, that's true. Oh. Well, they use that Bible, they stand on that for invading countries, killing people, all kinds of things. And
well, everybody does,
It's wrong.
I mean, it is wrong. I mean, you could use the Quran for the same purpose, right?
Yeah.
You could use the sutras. I mean, the Buddhists, for some reason, found it okay to kill themselves or to go after the Rohingya in Burma. The Tibetans, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on up there among the Tibetan Buddhist sects. They're all dissing each other constantly, and there's been murder accusations and everything else. I mean, virtually every religion, as we said at the very beginning, has formulated rationales for killing other people, whether singly or in groups or genocidally, but they've come up with rationales for doing it. We're very inventive that way,
Oh, boy. Wow.
So, and it's our spiritual leaders who are partially at fault, and it's it's the politicians, the military, who definitely are at fault because, it's part of propaganda. We learned back in during World War II, but we really learned it in the 1950s and the 1960s. Again, I keep hating to plug my book, but anyway, it's in Sinister Forces for those who are interested in how this all started. We found out that we could use religion as propaganda.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We used it in Kenya when the Mau Mau uprisings were taking place. We used it in Vietnam. We used it everywhere where we were involved in these robot wars and these wars in various countries around the world. We realized that religion had a very powerful influence over the minds of people. And if we could change their spiritual perspective, we could change an enemy into an ally very quickly. Or we could demonize our enemies to the extent that we would rouse the other people against them for religious reasons. Not for logical reasons, for pragmatic reasons, not even for money or for oil, but for religious reasons. We could say it's a sign from God. These people are demons, and we're here as avenging angels. As long as you use that kind of language, we discovered we could do anything. And our psychological warfare people did that in the military. CIA developed techniques for doing that in the intelligence community. You can go back and take a look at the declassified documents and the manuals for doing this. There's a lot of stuff out there on this, a lot of documentation. And there's guides of it in Sinister Forces, but you could look at it and hunt for it. You'll find it. These are the official government documents. Religion can be used as a propaganda device to alter the worldview of the people we want to either invade or attack, or to get on our side to invade and attack someone else. Religion is really powerful. It's still that powerful.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. It's sad to say, but you're absolutely correct, Peter. Oh my gosh.
And it's easy to manipulate people whose spirituality has not developed much beyond, well, if it's in the Bible, it must be true.
Right.
It's really easy to manipulate people like that. And people who are listening to your show probably don't fall into that category. But there's a lot of people out there that are easy to manipulate if you talk religion.
Yeah.
Because they themselves have not developed enough confidence in their own spirituality to tell the good from the bad.
Mm-hmm.
To tell a real operator, from a true believer, from a true preacher, a true, spiritually advanced person. You can't tell the difference, right?
Right.
A person who's charismatic could be charismatically evil as well as good. Charisma means gift. It comes from the Greek, and that gift can be used for good, purposes or for bad purposes. Arthur Machen, the famous short story writer of Gothic horror, said there are sacraments of evil as well as of good. So we have to understand that. We have to understand that just because a preacher says this is the word of God doesn't mean that he's leading us down, the right path. He could be in the pockets of some satanic group. By satanic, I mean not just devil worshippers, but in some lobby, some group with their own political agenda, their own military agenda. So you have to step back and think to yourself, what does my understanding of religion tell me? What does my understanding of spirituality tell me? And if you don't know, don't take that extra step until you do.
Good point. Excellent point. Oh, Peter. It's breathtaking. It really, really is. And that stuff has been around for eons, and they use it like sugar, What do you know about what happened in Russia with that alleged comet that hit?
That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the people who were injured. Over 1,000 people, they say.
Yes.
According to what NASA has come out with recently, they said that meteor was much bigger than they thought it was. And that when it entered the Earth's atmosphere, the explosion was so many, I forget how many times greater than the atomic bomb over Hiroshima. That it exploded in the atmosphere, which caused a tremendous boom, which blew out windows in the towns in Russia.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it flew into fragments.
It demolished a zinc factory also.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we could do with such zinc factories probably. But anyway, that was stunning. And the video of it, people these days have, their cell phones, and they have, portable video stuff, which we didn't have back in 1947 with Roswell, but we have it now, and people can actually take film of this stuff as it's happening. So It's getting harder and harder to hide if this was a military exercise of some kind. No one seems to have said it was. Not officially. The Russians certainly haven't claimed this was a military exercise, that, this was something that blew up one of their own or somebody else's. So I'm kind of withholding judgment on the conspiracy aspect of it.
Well, Peter, why would Russia allow on a Russian news site for, I think it's the head of their Communist Party, to come out and say that it was a weapons test of the U.S. that did this?
Well, because Russia today is not the Russia of yesterday. If it was the Russia of yesterday, and the guy had said that, that was a deliberate political provocation, and, we would be at the brink of nuclear war. But these days, it's easy for the Russians to claim any kind of stuff because no one's going to drop a bomb anytime soon. What they want to do is get their people riled up. There's a definite trend in the Russian national consciousness these days to re-identify the United States as the enemy. Putin's been very strong about trying to do that, of trying to create his own cult of personality, to get his troops around him, and to have a bugaboo, because Russia was strong under the Soviet Union, under communism.
Yeah.
They were strong, or they appeared strong. They were internally quite weak. I mean, the people were starving. They had spent most of their fortune on military stuff. But, in the space race with us and the missile race and everything else. So economically they were weak, but they appeared strong. The military was strong anyway. The Russians want to get back to that. A lot of Russians want to get back to that. They preferred the times of Stalin, to having the Russian mafia run everything.
Oh.
I was in Russia once. I was in Moscow in the late 90s. And I can tell you it's a beautiful city. There's a lot, to appreciate about it. But it was a very nervous place to be. And I've been to a lot of nervous places.
Did you stay at the Metropole Hotel?
No, I visited the Metropole, though.
Oh, okay.
For sure. I mean, I had to see the Metropole, and I had to see Dzerzhinsky Square and the Lubyanka and all that other stuff. I mean, so I did that with the KGB tour guide, by the way.
Yeah.
Former KGB. So he took me around and showed me all this stuff because that's what I really wanted to see. But it was not a friendly place. It was a cold, dangerous kind of place.
Wow.
You felt constantly on edge in Moscow. And, I never saw a ruble. Everything was in U.S. dollars. It was just the weirdest kind of Twilight Zone place to be. Maybe it's different now, but the mafia was definitely present everywhere. They were running all sorts of rackets because the collapse of the government showed that, there was now this liaison between the Russian mafia and elements of the military, and even some Islamic, fundamentalist groups that were looking for independence, like the Checheniks, from Chechnya, people like that. So it was very complicated politically, militarily, in terms of organized crime. The situation is very complex, and the average Russian person can't stand it, right? So there's this resurgence of membership in the Russian Orthodox Church,
yes,
but also in all kinds of other New Age groups and other kinds of religious groups that are popping up there. There's this desire for order, for some kind of sense. And the Russian leadership is happy to play on that, and it's happy to try to manipulate their own people. The way we manipulate ours, they manipulate theirs, and it's just more of the same. So personally, I don't believe it was a U.S. military test at all. I think that is part of Russian propaganda, and I think that's to be expected of the Russians right now. Let's get the people behind us and stay suspicious of the United States. They have a very active propaganda arm in Russian television, RT, that does a lot of sort of anti-American stuff on their radio and television shows. Not all of it is that way, but there's that agenda that's there, so you have to be very careful of the stuff that comes out of RT. I had an argument with a guy who was a regular on RT, a guy called Adrian Salbucci, and I was kind of nice to him. We were sort of communicated until we got to the question of World War II and the Holocaust and all of that. And from his point of view, I didn't have an open mind because I believed there was a Holocaust.
Yeah.
Right. So these days, if you believe in the Holocaust, it's because your mind is closed, as opposed to a Holocaust denier whose mind is open.
Oh, boy.
So up is down and black is white and all of that. So he just stopped communicating with me. Although I have been introduced by a very close friend of his, and there was a diplomatic, exchange as well from, some high-level diplomat thing. I won't go into all that detail. But in the end, Salbucci didn't want to talk to me because he has the agenda has to be promoted in a certain way.
Yeah.
We have to say certain things and promote a certain worldview, and that's okay. I don't have anything against other people's worldviews. But as John McCain said a couple of days ago, and I hate quoting John McCain, but there you go. John McCain said, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Oh.
And this is true. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But let's start with certain facts and agree that these are the facts.
Yes.
And build from there. You can take a fact and spin it any way you want to, but let's start with the facts. At least let's start with the facts. Let's not start with the opinion and find a fact to fit it. Let's start with the facts and then build opinions based on that. Let's agree on some kind of reality. We need a consensus reality to start with.
Yeah.
And we just don't have one anymore. We just got, we got all kinds of opinions and not a hell of a lot of facts to deal with. So, and even McCain got frustrated because, he was being attacked for all sorts of things that they claimed he said or he did or didn't do or didn't say. Or, people making up stuff about the world, about the way the world works. And it was illegal immigration, I think, was the beginning of this particular fight that he had. So, yes, I agree with that statement. You are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. So let's start with the fact and work from there. And there are people who say the Holocaust is not a fact, and they'll say 6 million didn't die. It was only 1 million. And I think to myself, well, what the hell does that mean?
Well, 14 million Christians died.
Absolutely. 20 million Russians died.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah, apparently not.
Apparently not. Apparently it was okay to kill 20 million Russians.
Mm-hmm.
That, in fact, we can all agree on. Even the Holocaust deniers pretty much agree, yeah, a lot of Russians died. And their excuse for the reason why, Jews died in the camps was because of disease, was because of typhus or because of, malaria, dysentery, or whatever the hell they come up with different opinions all the time. But let's say it was typhus. Everybody was dying of typhus and influenza.
Yeah.
Okay? They would not have died of those things had they not been in the damn camps.
Right.
The Russian citizens didn't die of those things. It was the people in the camps that died of those things. So let's grant that there were no crematoria, that there were no, death chambers or gas chambers, which we know is not true. Okay? But let's just, because of the documents the Nazis themselves produced. But let's just say, for the time being, okay, there were no gas chambers. All the Jews who died in the camps died because of disease. Well, what the hell were they doing in the camps in the first place? And why were they squeezed into these places where the contagious diseases would spread and they would all die? You can't have it both ways. You can't just,
Exactly.
Let's start with some fact and let's work our way up from there,
Oh,
but anyway, this is the situation that you face. If we're still fighting over that, how can we get straight on anything else that's happened in the last 50 years?
I know.
Still fighting in World War II,
Yeah. Well, I want to take you to sort of outer space again.
Sure.
I contend that if there are extraterrestrials, aliens, so to speak, that they're wearing three-piece suits, driving Mercedes-Benz, and they hang out in Wall Street in the city of London. Would I be far off?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't really see them driving Chevy Novas, do you?
No.
They might like the name, but I don't think they would actually go for a Gremlin, for that matter. I think that, if aliens live among us, they're obviously not going to be easily identifiable.
Right.
So they're either going to mix with large groups of people that are sort of amorphous, that can blend in easily, that, a physical differences will be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be living in countries or in areas of countries where nobody would really notice them because of the way they dress or the way they acted, if they could not get their story completely straight.
Right.
Or conversely, they were experts at looking like the rest of us. And if you're an expert at doing that and you have, let's posit, greater intelligence perhaps, where would you be? If you were really smart and you could pass really well, where would you wind up? You'd wind up maybe in Hollywood, as a movie star, perhaps, right? Or as some kind of somebody doing that, because that would put you in a position to influence a great number of people. If you remember the original Men in Black film, where they had this huge screen where they showed you all the people who were real aliens passing as human beings, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. I think Newt Gingrich was on there. I think there was a few other people like that. So there were these celebrities that, were supposedly, really aliens in real life. I mean, that was the idea, right? These were people that were celebrities. These were people that we would know, that we would recognize, who are people molding public opinion. On the other side, they could be controlling the world's wealth.
Yes.
For their own purposes. And controlling the world's wealth, where would you go? You'd go to Wall Street, you go to the city of London. These days, you would go to Shanghai, too. You would go to Berlin, So there's a lot of places you would wind up.
Brussels.
Or you would be finding yourself in locations where the wealth is physical wealth that you'd want to control, not just the paper wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be in countries that were rich in natural resources.
Yeah.
You would go to places that you would not be noticed, maybe places on the African continent, in Asia, places where there's a lot of raw material that's still unexploited, that's still there. So you try to control access to that, perhaps, if you needed uranium for some reason, or you needed petroleum, or you needed gold, diamonds, whatever raw materials you needed, because your focus is going to be different from ours.
Yeah.
They wouldn't necessarily need gold, for instance, as a commodity in terms of money, only if they had a physical application that needed that particular metal, right?
Well, maybe like getting off the planet.
Well, right. But if we're talking about aliens, we have to assume they already have that technology, right? So maybe the gold is used in some kind of star drive that we don't understand, or uranium is, or it could be something simple. It could be a specific form of water. It could be a specific form of soil, or even of air. Maybe pollution is necessary.
Oh, boy.
Maybe pollution is their laboratory. Maybe they're churning out all this pollution because they need certain parts per million, in an atmosphere in order to create a specific device. I mean, who knows? We don't really know. We're speculating completely. But they would not necessarily have the same values as we have, is what I'm trying to say. So what we value and what they value would be entirely different things. It would depend upon what they needed, either for survival here, for survival somewhere else, or for transportation. So, their focus will be on different kinds of metals. Maybe it's something that's abundant here that we don't think of.
Wow.
Remember that in alchemy, to go back to an occult explanation, the alchemists believed that the prima materia, the first material, the thing that you start with, the thing that will give you the philosopher's stone, is something that everybody sees, that everyone ignores because it's very common. They quote the Bible saying that the stone the builders rejected was the cornerstone of the temple. So there's something that we pass over all the time, that we ignore, that we never recognize, which has that real value buried within it, if we only knew how to recognize it and release it. Yeah. And if you have an alien technology, it's possible they understand what this material is that we ignore, and they could be stockpiling that or finding ways to move it without our being aware of it. So all of these things are possible. Once you start down that road, sure, an alien could be in the city of London or in Wall Street.
But a group of them.
A group. But their agenda would be something that is alien to us. We would not be able to understand what that agenda is if we think like human beings. We'd have to think like they think, which is really difficult because we don't know how they think. But at least one step would be, let's switch our perspectives a little bit. Let's look at everything from a different angle. Let's stand outside the system and look into it the way an alien would, landing on the planet, and let's see what there is that we have that might be valuable to them. There were these stories of alien abductees being probed, which is very funny stuff sometimes, I suppose, if you didn't go through it. And there was this idea that, there was this alien-human hybrid thing taking place, that they were mining DNA for some reason, which is another possibility. Or there was some need, not just for our planet, but for us as people on the planet. And of course, there's all the stories that we as human beings originated there, originated off planet. So in that case, everyone who works in Wall Street or in the city of London or in Shanghai, we're all aliens. I mean, we are the aliens. As Ray Bradbury said in the Martian Chronicles, when the Americans arrived up there and watched the Earth blow up, they said to each other, well, we are the Martians, because they became the Martians. So maybe we're the aliens, and we just don't understand it yet. We don't understand the extent to which a lot of what we do, a lot of these seemingly irrational things that we do are not irrational at all. They're adhering to a plan that's been hardwired into us from the beginning. That's something to speculate about.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow. That is interesting, Peter. You're always very interesting. My goodness. I know that if you've got Generation 2 night vision goggles and you look up in the sky, you can see things that look like a war going on up there.
Oh, yeah.
What is that all about? I mean, are there I could see that there are alien people here